Ex-Crystal Palace part owner John Textor, owner of the Eagle Football Holdings multi-club ownership model. Well, he's back in the game. According to reports this morning, he has stabled a ridiculous bid for Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, a club that's in a little bit of a disarray at the moment, a club that manager Pereira has, as of yesterday, shown the first signs of dissent, the first signs of what usually leads to an eventual exit after falling out with fans. As a Tottenham fan, having seen Ange Postecoglou have many a fallout with many a Tottenham fan last season on the way to lifting the Europa League, you knew it was inevitability. When you lose the patience of the fans, maybe Pereira is on the list next to go still to win a game in the Premier League this season, having just signed a new contract in the last 2 months to extend his stay at Molineux. There's a lot of discontent among the Wolverhampton Wanderers fan base at the ownership, at the manager, at the players right now. And John Textor, who is under an incredible debt, an incredible amount of pressure from his debts that he owes to financing company Ares Capital. Remember on a video, I'll see if I can put the link to it here, the biggest story no one was talking about a few weeks ago, John Textor's Eagle Football Holdings being given a reprieve, a stay of execution by Ares Capital, who, when we crunch the numbers, are owed around $80 million a year from John Textor's multi-club ownership model. Don't forget, those teams involved in that model are, of course, Lyon, they are Molenbeek of Brazil, and they are Botafogo. $80 million a year is scheduled to be repaid just in interest payments alone. And I said, this guy is on the verge of bankruptcy. I actually made the prediction that if nothing changed, if it was just going to go down the way it was looking like it was going down, then Lyon would be needing to sell players to rob Peter to pay Paul. You have to pay the piper. Otherwise, maybe Ares Capital would be, because of their payment in kind loan scenario, payment in kind debt being, if you don't have the money to pay back the debt right now, we'll let it roll for another year, but the juice keeps on running. An inevitable outcome would have found that eventually maybe Ares Capital would have eventually taken over at Lyon, maybe also at Molenbeek. Botafogo seemingly doing better in regards their own potential and particular output, their outcomes, their financial situation looking rather good. But the model that is employed at Eagle Football Holdings is all around trying to bring players from Brazil, from the South American continent, into the Premier League and to European football. And today, we've got this story with regards Wolverhampton Wanderers. And you have to think about it on paper, Wolverhampton Wanderers are possibly and probably a really good fit for that model. There was rumours out a couple of months ago at the end of the transfer window that maybe having John Textor sold his stake in Crystal Palace for £190 million, most of which was to pay down the debt and to reposition money into Lyon's coffers so that they would have a better chance of not getting relegated to Ligue 2 because of their own financial mismanagement under the John Textor ownership. Well, Wolverhampton Wanderers has suddenly apparently emerged as an opportunity, and Wolves, as we know, I think Wolves used to have a relationship with a super agent. I forget the guy's name off the top of my head. I'll see if I can put it up in the post edit. Who brings in lots of players from Portugal, and so with Portugal already, there's lots of sort of the sort of South American, the Portuguese, and the Spanish contingent playing through Wolves historically. With this relationship where John Textor likes to bring players from Botafogo, he's already sent a couple into Nottingham Forest. There were rumours that Nottingham Forest's Marinakis was going to front run or to somehow merge forces with John Textor's Eagle Football Holdings to combine into something as a much bigger, a hugely more significant player in the multi-club ownership world. That ended up being poo-pooed and nothing really materialising. But today we have the story regarding Wolverhampton Wanderers. And we're going to talk about this one right now. Bear with me, guys. But please, if you enjoy this football, these sort of global football updates and all things finance, then this is what we do here at Sean Butler TV. So please do smash the like button, hit the subscribe, Notification bell button should be squeezed, and also drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Let's start with the story. Wolves receive £400 million takeover bid from controversial ex-Premier League owner. Wolverhampton Wanderers supporters have called for the Fosun Group to sell the football club for a number of years, and John Textor is the latest businessman linked with a takeover. Controversial ex-Palace owner John Textor has made an effort worth £400 million to buy Wolves amid fan fury with the current ownership at Molineux. Wolves are the only team not to register a Premier League win this season. Indeed, they're the only team in the top 6 divisions of English football without one. Wanderers' injury time defeat to Burnley on Sunday leaves them bottom of the table and 6 points adrift from safety. After the full-time whistle, the home fans were heard singing against current owners Fosun, which has owned the club since 2016 and confronted head coach Vitor Pereira with chants of "you're getting sacked in the morning." As I said at the start of the video, the reaction from Pereira wasn't pretty, and it did ring bells as a Tottenham fan to Ange Postecoglou's fallout with Tottenham fans at several different incidents during last season, but one of them against, I think it was Bournemouth away, when it was a really bad one where he had to get pulled away from the fans by Tottenham players. Similar things happened last night. Anyway, let's carry on. Now, as first revealed by The Athletic, Textor, who sold a minority stake in Crystal Palace in the summer, it was 40% of Palace, by the way, for £190 million. In the summer, is keen to add Wolves to his multi-club group portfolio. It's reported that an offer of £150 million with a further 262.6 in shares has been made to buy Wanderers. Textor currently owns stakes in Brazilian side Botafogo, French team Lyonnais, and Belgium's RWDM Brussels, which is Molenbeek. The American businessman likes Wolves' a long-standing policy of recruiting Portuguese players due to the Eagle Football Group's model of bringing South American talent to Europe's market. However, Wolves' sources continuing to insist they're not for sale and that they're merely looking for additional outside investment. Textor's bid for Wolves came in the same week as a Brazilian court ruled that his actions to step down as club president at Lyon to ring-fence Botafogo had to be reversed. I mean, this guy is a mess. This guy is an absolute mess. If I'm a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan, I'll be entirely honest, guys. Look, it does make sense on paper. The model of bringing players from Botafogo into the Premier League, traditionally it's been ring-fenced into Europe because of the legality, the visa issues of bringing players straight from there into the Premier League. But because of Brexit, one of the kind of, I don't know, not to get political on you, but one of the kind of incidental benefits of Brexit has been that players can come direct from the South American continent into the Premier League a little bit easier than they have done previously, as long as they have played some minutes, I think, for their international side. I think that's the rules. Anyway, but this guy has debts up to his eyeballs. He's in bed with all of the financial sort of the payday loan company sorts of things that work within financial capital. There's Ares Capital is one. The others I'll come to in just a second. But generally speaking, the reality is that this guy is a ticking time bomb. And I'd be very reluctant to get into bed. As I said before, I think that this guy is eventually going to run out of money, run out of time on the debt, and it's going to be unsustainable, and that eventually Ares Capital might end up taking over at Lyon. And this is probably one of those last remaining options for him to buy into a club. And I'll walk you through the financial sort of situation here in a second. But in essence, to try to move money from one pillar to the next in order to make things look good. I think the similar sorts of things, but for different reasons, happened. I think it was with MCP Capital, or was it 777? I forget which one of the other multi-club ownerships that were deemed to be absolutely insolvent last season. It was a wild story there. We spoke about that also on Sean Butler TV. Textor's bid for Wolves came as the same week as Brazilian court. We've done that bit. Textor successfully avoided an administrative relegation to League Two for Lyon in the summer, thereby retaining his role as key decision maker in France. It is understood that he remains the majority shareholder at EFG, Eagle Football Holdings Group, which is Lyon's parent company. There's also the ongoing legal dispute with primary lender Ares Management. Here we go. This is the bit which is seeking to recover the $425 million it lent to Textor to purchase Lyon 3 years ago. Discussions are ongoing to reach a conclusion, which would see Textor retain Botafogo and Ares acquire Lyon. There you go. I hadn't seen this bit before. That's exactly what I predicted was going to happen. As I said before, in terms of Eagle Football Holdings with Companies House, they haven't still to this day, whilst the news broke about a month ago with regarding Eagle Football Holdings having a stay of execution from Ares Capital with this payment in kind loan, which essentially is just rolling the juice on the debt for another year. They hadn't submitted their financial details, their confirmation statements, and their profit and loss accounts, all of those things, for going back to 2021. And this year, this summer, they are also behind. They're delaying their numbers once again, which essentially is against the law. And so, as I say, John Textor is in a world of problems. And maybe, just maybe, this kind of rolling of the dice with Wolves is an attempt to try to free up some liquidity from his Botafogo holdings and bring it into the Premier League to be able to get juicier money, to be able to make the numbers work. But it becomes pretty transparent to me and to anyone that's seeing what's going on here is that time is of the essence. The clock is running out of space, and that the debts are getting to levels that are just absolutely unsustainable. Another disagreement, this time with EFG shareholders, Iconic Sports Eagle Investment, who believe it had an insurance policy for its $75 million investment in EFG, allowing Textor to buy back Iconic's EFG shares at a set price if its plan to take EFG public failed. In 2023, it did, and Textor did not repurchase the shares within the agreed upon 12 months. This is just madness. In the week after his bid to take over Wolves, a court in Florida ruled against Textor's request to have the case heard in the United Kingdom. As EFG is a UK-based company, it's a UK-based company, but they're not adhering to UK-based laws with regards presenting and filing their accounts on time, which, as I say, as a business owner, I know that the consequences of that are usually pretty significant, especially if they are not resolved in a timely period. That was followed by his appearance at the Court of Arbitration for Sport in a separate case involving Atalanta United and MLS over the transfer installments for Thiago Almada. Thiago Almada, a player that was on loan at Lyon last season, that was loaned out from Botafogo, but he owed money to Atalanta United for the purchase from Atalanta to Botafogo. He then, the player was supposed to be staying. He's a top quality player, Thiago Almada, and he left Lyon for after that loan deal and ended up going to Atletico Madrid. On Friday, October the 17th, an English court ruled against Textor's application to have Iconic's claim valued at £70 million thrown out. A full trial will take place next year. All this comes after the American lost 2 cases in Belgium, accusing former Molenbeek owner Thierry Daly of fraud. He is also facing legal action from former Wolves and Botafogo manager Bruno Lage over jobs he may or may not have been offered elsewhere within Eagle Football Group. Guys, this fella is a absolute ticking time bomb. If you are a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan, steer clear. Even if you're getting sucked into the idea that maybe you might get a couple of Botafogo or other players from that network that comes into Portugal, it does make sense. In an ordinary world where you had a normal businessman that was legit, that wasn't moving money around on paper to try to make the whole thing look legit and look secure, it would make brilliant sense for someone like him or someone with his network to be able to work with Wolves, who already have a sort of seamless integration with Portuguese players and Spanish players through their previous relationships. As I say, with the agent, is it Mendes? George Mendes? I think that's the guy I'm thinking of, who would bring in all of these superstars, these young superstars into Wolves, get them ingratiated into the Premier League, and then sell them on a year or two later into other areas of European football. But this guy isn't the guy. It's not the guy at all. And just to show you a little bit of the kind of the maths on it, how it would work on the deal, I just don't see it happening in any way, shape, or form. Textor's proposal, submitted via Moelis, which is the investment bank advising Fosun on the potential share sale, totals approximately £412 million. So he wanted to buy out the entirety of Wolves and plug them into the Molenbeek, Lyon, and Botafogo system, knowing full well, as I suspect, that Lyon will become part of Ares Capital, or Ares Management rather, in the coming months or in the next year or so. And he was going to pay £200 million as a cash component. So about 40%, 40% of the value of the transfer. And then the other $350 million, £260 million, was going to be in a rebooted, a quote unquote rebooted version of Eagle Football Group, which is Textor's holding company. But don't forget that a lot of the debts that are already owed to Aris Capital are not on John Textor's head. They are on the head of Eagle Football. And so essentially 60% of the deal was that the Fosun Group were going to essentially have a slice of the rest of the pie, a slice of Botafogo, a slice of Molenbeek, a slice of Lyon. But as I say, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that Lyon, who is probably the biggest prize in Europe of the 3 or 4 clubs that they would like to have in their entire system, Lyon are probably going to have to sell players. Aris Capital, Aris Management are not a company that traditionally wants equity in their football stakes. They will loan money at normally relatively reasonable interest rates. But if you remember from the video I did, again, I'll link to it if I can, please check it out, the biggest story in football that no one's talking about. Some of the annual interest rates that are dialed in on from Aris Capital onto Eagle Football Holdings are 17%, 19%, 25%. As I say, it totals $80 million a year in interest rate alone. And the debts are not being paid. The interest isn't being paid. And so there is this payment in kind relationship where Aris are saying, that's fine. We'll give you another year, but the juice is still rolling. So next year, you're going to owe us $160 million if you haven't paid us anything back on the last year. And when you can't pay it, we'll take the football club. We will take the football club. If you are a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan, I would say, please, as much as you might be angry with your current owners, better the devil you know than the devil that you don't. This guy is a ticking time bomb. He is a lunatic that is robbing people, allegedly. Careful what I say here. He is robbing Peter to pay Paul. He is moving numbers around on a piece of paper to try to look like he is liquid and to try to sustain a castle that is built on sand. It's a madness story. I can't believe this will happen. If it does, God, good luck to Wolves. Good luck to the fan base. Crystal Palace fans, you should be delighted that this guy is out of your football club. And Nottingham Forest fans, you should be very happy that you managed to get the players that you did from his network. Igor Jesus, Cunha, phenomenal players that will do very well for you. But don't get into bed with this guy. He is a disaster. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know your thoughts, guys. And I'll see you on the next one. As always, bye-bye.